So imagine this for a second. You've got one 24-hour period. In the nation's capital, a huge, high-profile event just explodes into chaos. At the exact same time, thousands of miles away, a super fragile peace process with a major adversary completely collapses. Now, this isn't the plot of some political thriller. This is a real-life look at a single day that put a U.S. presidency to the absolute ultimate test, forcing it to fight battles on two totally different fronts. Okay, let's dive right in. We start in Washington, D.C., at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You know the one. It's this glitzy, black tie event, always packed with politicians, journalists, the whole shebang. But on this particular Saturday night, all that glamour was just shattered by sudden violence, creating the exact kind of chaos you see described in that quote. And that brings us to the first crisis of the day. A really shocking, violent security breach at what is normally one of the most secure and honestly predictable events on the entire D.C. social calendar. So inside the ballroom, you've got President Trump, the First Lady Melania Trump, and hundreds of other really high-profile guests. And then, just outside, a man walks up to a security checkpoint and opens fire on a Secret Service agent. Now, what's really incredible when you look at these steps is just how fast the situation was brought under control. I mean, within moments of that first shot, the suspect was tackled, the president was secure, and the agent who was hit was already getting medical help. It was a perfect example of how these security teams are trained to react under the most extreme pressure. So, who was this guy at the center of all the chaos? Well, law enforcement identified him as Cole Thomas Allen. And the details, honestly, they're just perplexing. This is a highly educated man, a Caltech grad, an engineer. He was even a teacher of the month at one point. But despite this background and being armed with all these weapons, the biggest question mark is still the motive. Investigators just haven't found one. Of course, an incident like this, one involving the President of the United States, was never going to be just a local story. The news spread like a wildfire across the globe, and it did not take long for other world leaders to start weighing in. Right out of the gate, you had French President Emmanuel Macron. He called the attack unacceptable and really framed it as a fundamental attack on the very idea of democracy. And right across the channel, the UK's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, echoed that exact same feeling. He expressed his shock and was adamant that any attack like this has to be condemned, no question, in the strongest possible terms. Then from the Middle East, you have Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who talked about his shock, but also his relief that President Trump was safe. And it wasn't just them. Leaders from Italy and India also quickly put out statements of solidarity. You could really feel the global concern. But here's the thing. While the entire world's attention was glued to the drama playing out in Washington, another crisis was quietly hitting its breaking point. On that very same day, a critical diplomatic mission thousands of miles from D.C. was about to completely fall apart. Yup, President Trump just pulled the plug. He canceled his envoy's trip to Pakistan for peace talks with Iran. His reasoning was incredibly blunt. He basically said there was, quote, no point sitting around talking about nothing. He mentioned the crazy long travel time and said the peace offer from Iran just wasn't good enough. And wow, this slide right here, it just lays bare the massive chasm between the two countries. You have President Trump projecting this position of absolute power, saying we have all the cards. And then on the other side, Iran's President Pezeshkian fires right back, accusing the U.S. of coercive behavior and making it clear that Iran was not going to negotiate under any kind of threat. So what happened next? Well, the moment the direct talks died, the back channels just lit up. Regional mediators, especially the Sultan of Oman, jumped in immediately to try and save the whole thing. At the same time, Iran's foreign minister kicked off his own diplomatic tour, trying to keep the negotiations alive, even if the U.S. wasn't at the table anymore. So let's just pull the camera back for a second. When you look at these two huge events happening together, what you're really seeing is a presidency being stress-tested in real time. This wasn't just one crisis, it was two, hitting all at once in a single 24-hour period. So on one front, you have this incredibly direct physical threat at home. It's a moment of raw personal danger that demands this immediate, powerful projection of stability and control, not just for the nation, but for the whole world watching. And then, on the other front, you've got this delicate, high-stakes game of diplomatic chess. It's such a stark contrast, you know? Brute force versus careful diplomacy. And it really makes you wonder, did the mindset you need for one, that absolute show of strength when you're attacked, did that influence the hardline stance that was taken in the other? So, this all boils down to one final, really crucial question. Look, handling even one major crisis is tough enough. But when a leader is forced to deal with a violent threat at home and a diplomatic breakdown abroad, all at the same time, how they navigate that perfect storm can reveal everything, not just about their own leadership, but about the stability of our entire interconnected world.